us bow at his feet. He has done great things. See what a Savior has done. See how his love overcomes. He has done great things. He has done great things. Oh, hero of heaven, you conquer the grave. You free every captive and break every chain. Oh God, you have done great things. We dance in your freedom, awake and alive. Oh Jesus, our Savior, your name lifted high. Oh God, you have done great things. You've been faithful through every storm. You'll be faithful forevermore. Oh, you have done great things. And I know you will do it again. For your promise is yes and amen. Oh, you will do great things. Yes, God, you do great things. Oh, hero of heaven, you conquer the grave. You free every captive and break every chain. Oh God, you have done great things. We dance in your freedom, awake and alive. Oh Jesus, our Savior, your name lifted high. Oh God, you have done great things. Hallelujah, God, above it all. Hallelujah, God, unshakable. Hallelujah, you have done great things. Hallelujah, God, above it all. Hallelujah, God, unshakable. Hallelujah, you have done great things. You've done great things. Oh, hero of heaven, you conquer the grave. You free every captive and break every chain. Oh God, you have done great things. We dance in your freedom, awake and alive. Oh Jesus, our Savior, your name lifted high. Oh God, you have done great things. You have done great things. Oh God, you do great things. Amen. Good morning, church. Welcome to Sunrise. My name is Aaron. I'm one of the pastors here. It is good to be with you guys this morning. Good to be back here with you this weekend. If you're joining us online, welcome. If this is your first time, welcome home. We're glad that you're here at Sunrise with us today. I just want to ask you a question before we get started any further this morning. What stops you, church? What causes you to pause? What makes you just stop in your tracks? Is it ever God that does that? Because we have a God who has created incredible things around us. And this morning, as you were driving in, or maybe you get up early, you get to see the sunrise, was God ever compelling you just that sense of awe and wonder? And as we worship him today, that's our desire, is that God wells up inside of us just as our creator, as the author of our story, just an overwhelming sense of himself. which compels us to praise and to worship. And so we just invite you into that this morning, church. Hopefully you've come ready to sing, ready to engage as his people, and just give him glory today.
Lord of all creation, of water, earth, and sky, the heavens are your tabernacle. Glory to the Lord on high, the God of wonders beyond our galaxy. You are holy, holy. The universe declares your majesty. You are holy, holy. Lord of heaven and earth. Lord of heaven and early in the morning, I will celebrate the light. As I stumble in the darkness, I will call your name by night. God of wonders beyond our galaxy. You are holy, holy. Universe declares your majesty. You are holy, holy. Lord of heaven and earth. Lord of heaven and earth. Hallelujah to the Lord of heaven and earth. Hallelujah to the Lord of heaven and earth. Hallelujah to the Lord of heaven and earth. God of wonders beyond our galaxy. You are holy, holy. Precious Lord, reveal your heart to me. Father, hold me, hold me. The universe declares your majesty. You are holy, holy. Lord of heaven and earth. Lord of heaven and earth. God of wonders beyond our galaxy. You are holy, holy. Precious Lord, reveal your heart to me. Father, hold me, holy. The universe declares your majesty. You are holy,
It's good to worship together today, church. It's good to be together. We want to give you a few moments to be a family this morning. So go ahead and take a minute or so, shake some hands, give some hugs, say hello to the people that are with you. And Pastor James is going to be up in just a second to give us a message.
Welcome, everybody. As you make your way to your seat, I want to make a comment. Dude, I got the mic. Welcome. It's good to see Heather Brown here. Thanks for getting out of PJams and showing up to church. I love it. I had to tease her. She was at our house. She said she's finally going to come. Some of you are still online. We love you. Get out of your PJams and come to church. I want to thank God for the gifts and talents of the people that he's brought here that we've been able to see used. And specifically, and I know people on the platform often get more press than children's workers in the back, and apologies for that. But here's what I want to say. Pastor Aaron and worship team were at Men's Roundup last weekend down at Camp Tadmore. 1,200 guys were led in worship by our amazing worship team. And in a good way, they led our annual Richmond conference a year or so ago, and in a good way, I was really proud. And I sat there thinking, this is awesome, and I loved it. And so wherever you serve, whatever you do, whatever you're plugged into, whatever age group, especially if it's junior high ministry, we're praying for you. But the fact that you get to express your gifts, your giftedness, your calling, your service, as one of the pastors here, I just want to say thank you. So God bless you on that one. Let me pray and we'll get started. Father, thank you for our time in your word today. And we've already had some great worship through song. We're going to have worship through your word. And on today, Father, be honored in us. Open our hearts to see you. We pray in your name. So if you're here today and thank you. If you're here today and church is a new thing for you, I'm going to really be talking to followers of Jesus. And so if you go, exactly, I showed up to church and I knew I was going to get one of those messages, it's not for you. Just chill. You could kick back and get a cup of coffee and let the heat rise on those that call themselves Christians, all right? But if you are here and you're a follower of Jesus Christ, you're in trouble because we're going to talk about it. We're going to go deep in an area that makes a lot of pastors feel uncomfortable, people feel uncomfortable. And to help me out, I need you to do two things. I want you to get out a timepiece. Now, back in the day, I would say, take your watch, which I have a Fitbit. Maybe you don't have a watch, you've got your smartphone. Grab your smartphone. Anything that you use to tell time. And if it's a friend, just nod to them, all right? If you need someone else to wake you up. So pull out a timepiece. So pull out a timepiece. You got one? Okay, good. All right, hold it up in my left hand, your left hand. Okay, now I want you to pull out some money. Now, I don't know what that means. You might have some actual cash. I'm a married man. I'm not allowed to have cash. And so I don't have any of that. I've got a credit card, all right? Maybe you're a little more old school. You have a checkbook. My kids have no idea what a checkbook is. I don't think they'll ever write a check. They just send us bills. And so pull out something that represents money. If you don't have something, steal from your neighbor's purse. This actually I found from a purse out in the parking lot. I think it was Jenny's. No, I don't know. So something that represents money, and hold it up in your right hand. So everybody hold up both left and right hands. You have something that represents time and something that represents money. You're holding up a baby. That represents debt. Okay, so, but a lot of love. So here's what I want you to do. You can let go of these, watch your neighbor. I'm not too sure about the people sitting next to you when it comes to the money, or if it's a nice watch. But sit it down, but we're gonna think about this. A few times I'll ask you to pull out and hold up what represents time for us and what represents money for us. Okay, that's where we're going today. Now, I love passages in the Bible, specifically in the teachings of Jesus, the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, when he addresses really uncomfortable subjects, issues that make us kind of squirm. And today he's going to do that. But what's fascinating is he's speaking to a group of people that thought a lot like we do today. Now, it does say they loved their money, and it does say they were religious. So I'm going to assume you're a religious person because you showed up here or you're watching online. Not quite sure what that means. We'll just use that word. And you love your money. And I just got to be honest. We all do, right? We all have stuff. And I'm not bashing stuff. I've got stuff, and you've got stuff. That's great. We have a lot of stuff. We have a lot of value built into the stuff. Okay, that's fine. Jesus is addressing a group of people that think a lot like we do. And I'm just going to tell you the bottom line. Like we do, we think that because we forget that our time is, well, I just said it, ours, and our money is ours. And they didn't have a perspective that Jesus wanted them to have. And so today, Jesus is going to teach us, and here's the bottom line, if you've got to leave, that our time and our money is not ours. It all belongs to God. It all comes from God. It's distributed by God. It's to be used for God's purposes. And in the end, it'll be accountable to God. That's my sermon. I just gave it to you, all right? So now you can relax until Jesus starts talking in just a couple minutes, and it's going to get tense again. Here's the deal. Jesus tells a parable. I love parables. Parables are stories that were told at the time of Christ. Historians tell us that there were about 4,000 parables at the time of Jesus. Jesus used about 40 of those. He was a master at twisting them around and turning them around, and the people were just amazed. And the reason he told parables was, on the one hand, to confuse the people that didn't want to hear, but to inform the people that had a heart to hear. So I hope you have a heart to hear today. The reality is that a parable was necessary to communicate a truth. And we often say a parable is a heavenly story with an earthly meaning. That's great. The word parable literally means to cast alongside, like you're casting seed alongside. And at the time of Jesus, a rabbi said it this way: a teaching, or we could say a sermon, without a parable is like a basket without handles. Now think about that. If you load up your basket, you go to market, and you got your basket full of your food, and you want to take it home, without a handle, it's kind of complicated. It's difficult to take home. In other words, Jesus told parables so people would be lying in bed at night and go, that's what he was talking about. Oh my goodness, I didn't realize that. Or people would sit around and go, what do you think about that? I mean, who are you? And who am I in this thing, this story? Jesus told these stories, these parables, as a way to illustrate a very deep, significant truth that he wanted his hearers, and you and me today, because they're written down in the gospel stories, to hear and to know and to understand and to act upon. And this one today is beautiful because it's weird. It's the weirdest story, in my opinion, Jesus ever told. And if you're ever reading along and you're reading about the nice thing and the coin and the sheep and the sun and all this stuff, and then you come to this one, you're like, slam on the brakes, you're like, what? Excuse me, Jesus? It's like a crying baby in a room that just halts everything. You're like, what? Hold on, I got to read that again. You're like, something's wrong here. So I want to direct your attention to the book of Luke, because we're in the writings of Luke, and Paul and team have been preaching through the writings of Luke, the Luke and the book of Acts, his writings, and specifically in this subsection, we're talking about money and God's view of money and what that would do for us and his kingdom. And so Jesus shares in Luke 16, so if you have a Bible, you could open up to Luke 16, verses 1 to 13. It's going to be on the screen, so don't panic, but we're going to take a look at a parable that's I just think it's beautifully weird. It's just one of those things that I think, that's amazing. Who would have the courage to say something like that? Now, most of the time, Jesus didn't explain his parables. He would tell them a parable, and they'd walk like, what was that? I have no idea what that just meant. You know what I mean? The religious people like, was he calling us what? Is that what was going on? The disciples were like, Jesus, could you help us out? Because we're having people ask us that we don't know what the heck you're talking about. Help us out, Jesus. Sometimes he did, rarely he did. This is one of the times he explained his parable. And it's really good because people would come to Jesus and sometimes they'd walk away a little befuddled. Have you ever read in the Gospels where Jesus would be with people and they'd ask him a question? And what would Jesus do? He wouldn't answer the question. He would just ask them a question, which actually answered the question, but not in the way they expected it. And so oftentimes people weren't quite sure what Jesus was saying. By the time we're done, there's no doubt you're going to know exactly what Jesus is saying. Because this is one of my favorite ones, I'll make sure we hit it home. And if you have any questions, I'll be in the foyer. If you're scratching your head, it's ask your neighbor. It's not that hard, okay? This is a really good one. Now, here's what's going on. In plain language, open up the book of Luke, chapter 16, starting in verse 1, Jesus tells them a story, a parable. He also said to his disciples, here it is, there was a rich man who had a manager, and charges were brought to him that this man was wasting his possessions. So do me a favor, hold out your time and your money. There was a rich guy, how about this? He had so much of this, he was weighed down with this, he didn't have time to manage all this, so he hired a dude to take care of this stuff, right? He hired someone to take care of his possessions. All right. Now, charges were brought about that this man was wasting his possessions. Other translations use the word squandering. I like that word, squander. Just say it with me right now. Squander. Doesn't it sound good coming out? Because you know exactly what's going on. He's frivolous. He's just wasting. He's squandering the owner's possessions, money in this case. So he called to him and said to him, what is this that I hear about you? Turn in the account of your management, for you can no longer be manager. So this is a guy that was hired to manage the business affairs of someone who had a lot, someone who was wealthy, who maybe wanted to travel, wanted to run several businesses. We don't have any idea. It's just a story. That's all it is, okay? But it's a really good story, and Jesus says there was a guy who had so much stuff that he had to hire another guy to take care of the stuff so he could go work on other stuff. All right? This guy was wealthy. And all of a sudden, he found out the guy was wasting it, squandering it, using it for himself, taking some of the stuff at home, slipping a little bit in his own pocket, skimming some off the top. And he found out about it, and it's like, dude, turn in your keys. The security guy is going to meet you. I got your card, your key card. Clean out your desk. We took your name off the office. You're in trouble. Now, that's the situation. That's the story. The story continues in verses 3 to 4. And the manager said to himself, this guy who's dishonest, who's very dishonest, who's stealing from his boss, the manager said to himself, what shall I do? Since my master is taking the management away from me, I'm not strong enough to dig, and I'm ashamed to beg. That's great. I like that. He's honest. I've decided what to do so that when I'm removed from management, people may receive me into their homes. This guy's awesome. He's like, hey, oh man, I've been living high on the hog, and the hog's leaving, okay? And I'm going to be left in the mud, and the mire, and the slop. I got to figure something out. I don't want to work. I hate work. I'd rather just, do somebody else's thing and make money off somebody else. And I don't want to sweat. I don't have the muscles. Looks in the mirror. I don't have the muscles to dig ditches. I don't know what to do because I can't really do much, all right? And he goes, hey, I got an idea. I know how to set myself up so that when this job is over and I'm fired, I've got a future. It's great. It's a great story. All right. The money manager realizes he's got two things going for him. He's got a little bit of time, He's got a little bit of money. Just a short amount of time before the boss calls all accounts in. He's got a little bit of money. Actually, he doesn't have any money. He has his boss's money. And look what he does. He says in verses 5-7, so summoning his master's debtors one by one, he said to the first, how much do you owe my master? He said 100 measures of oil. He said to him, take your bill and sit down quickly and write 50. And he said to another, how much do you owe? And he said 100 measures of wheat. He said, no, take your bill and write 80. Great idea. This is awesome. They should teach this in business ethics classes. In fact, looking at the state of America, they do teach this in business ethics classes. This is a classic, like, what? You're bad, but now you're horrible. I mean, you know you're going to be found out, right? You know that you're going to be an account for this, right? But here's what he does. He leverages the little bit of time and the little bit of money he has access to for his own safety and security in the future. But then something happens. The owner finds out, and he doesn't send him to jail. He doesn't throw him in some kind of headstocks or publicly shame him in the community. In verse 8, this is awesome. The master commended the dishonest manager for his shrewdness. Moms and dads, I don't know what kind of stories you read your kids at night, but read this one and stop there. You know, your kids are like, what is going on here? So if I steal from my brother and I lie to you, and then I steal from my sister to give back to my brother, I'm okay? Is that what's going on? I mean, that's kind of weird, right? And then he says this, for the sons of this world are more shrewd in dealing with their own generation than the sons of light. Now, you got to know, because the first time I read this, I was in the same boat. I'm like, what? Jesus, I thought there was a good guy and a bad guy. There's always got to be a good guy and a bad guy, right? There's always a story and a climax and an answer and everything like that. There's always something, you read Aesop's fables, you read other stories, and it kind of makes sense, right? The tortoise and the hare, we kind of know all that stuff. This one doesn't make sense. So who's bad and who's good? And why would you commend a bad guy? That doesn't sound like good ethics. And so to that, I just want to say thank you for coming this weekend. We're done. I'm going to pray, and you could go home. We'll take the offering first because we're a church. But you're like, wait a minute. Explain this one. Well, thankfully, Jesus explains this one. He says, the people who live in this world, the people who live for this world, the people who this is the only world they have a perspective. And people who follow God often don't have that perspective. In fact, the people who live for this world, who think about and focus on this world because this is the world they have, they're pretty smart with that. And I got to be honest, a lot of religious people are kind of dumb. They're a little naive. They don't think about this. And so Jesus told this parable so the dumb people, raise our hands, could get something. The people that don't think very well about money and resources could get it. Now, I don't want to insult you because Jesus did, but I'm not going to add to that. But the bottom line is that you have to admit that the weird and crazy billionaires of the world, they figured something out, right? They know how to rip off humanity for the sake of their own bottom line, right? And that's not a political statement. That's just a reality. The people who have a lot of money, who are head of corporations, who are established at the top. I know there's a UAW series of talks going on. Those people, who make that kind of money, they're smart. The people who pay zero taxes in this world, they're brilliant. All right? Now, I'm not commending that. Pay the government everything that's owed. No more, but pay them everything that's owed, right? But they've figured out schemes. They've figured out systems. You know this. It's in the news every week. Billionaires, very rich people make $20 million a year or more. They've figured something out, folks. And we haven't. Now, this is not a sermon about tax evasion. It's not a sermon decrying rich people. Jesus is saying they've figured out something. Maybe we could figure out that, but with a totally different bottom line. Because their bottom line is them. We should have a different bottom line. That's what Jesus is saying. The people who live in this world, the world that's today, it's here, and then it's gone, And Jesus' half-brother James said, the world's like a mist. Your life is like a vapor, rises in the morning, gone. It's so fast. We're like the grass that rises and gets scorched in the sun. Just, man, I don't care if you live 68 or 100, it just is gone. And one day you're forgotten. The people who live for those 60, 80, 100 years and try to maximize it, they have something to teach us. In fact, we have something to learn from them. If we're smart, we'll learn from them. But oftentimes, the religious people aren't as smart as they are. They're not as shrewd. All these people have the wrong motive. Don't be confused about this. But their actions are brilliant. And that's what Jesus is going for. And he says basically, you have a little bit of hold up your time. Come show me, a little bit of time. All right, you have a little bit of money, hold up your money. All right. And they know how to work with that. Why don't we work with that? Why aren't we shrewd? I'm not saying ethical. They're not ethical. Jesus is not saying don't be ethical. He's just saying the bottom line is they know something we don't. Now, Jesus says in verse 9, and I tell you, and here's started the turn, make friends for yourself by means of unrighteous wealth. Let's just call that stuff, whatever you've got. You drove here in stuff. You're wearing stuff. You're going home in stuff. We all have stuff, right? I'm not saying stuff is bad. Use your stuff so that when it fails or ends or is no longer, those things may receive you into the eternal dwellings. That's brilliant. Jesus says all your possessions, all your time, all your money, all your dreams, all your hopes, all your skills, all your abilities, you could use them for you like the worldly people do. To their credit, they're pretty smart. They're brilliant. They've really done well on their islands, okay? We could do the same thing, but for a different wealth, a different island, a different purchase. Because all the stuff we have here is gone. I mean, it's here now, but it's gone. Tomorrow, it's nothing. It's just a vapor, right? Everything we have is going to wear out or be stolen or decay, and it's just the reality, right? That's why we buy stuff. We continue to buy things because they get older, right? You know, unless you're buying an iPhone 15 because you have an iPhone 14. No, okay. I bought an iPhone 15 because I have an iPhone 11. You should feel bad for me. It's 4 years old. You know, seriously though, right? I mean, it's like I'm just as bad as everybody else. I look at something and I go, oh, it's shiny. Oh, it's new. It's better. It's faster. And if we don't correct our heart there, we're going to put our trust and our hope in our stuff and in our possessions. I have a 2019 Subaru Forester, and it's a work car for CV Northwest, and I drive a lot, right, like 25,000 miles a year, which maybe not be a lot for you, but I drive a lot. And there was a problem with it, and I took it in, and they couldn't fix it in time. And I said, I told you I'm going to Spokane tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock, so you need a car. And so I go, they give me a brand new version, a really nice version, a wilderness edition. It says it everywhere. It's like John Wayne, you know what I mean? And I'm like, I'm driving, I'm like, yeah, it's nice, but come on. Why would I buy that? The guy's like, oh, you should buy this. I'm like, are you stupid? I have a really well-functioning car. It's got 92,000 miles on it. Subaru's probably going to go to 200. Why would I pay more money for your fancy version? But come on, we do that all the time. I mean, how many times do we buy new clothes when our closets are full? But they're last season, or I kind of got bored with that one. I'm the same way. I saw this shirt 2 years ago on a Facebook ad. And I look at it for a while, and I click it, and once I do that, it knows me. I'm starting to get ads from this company. You know how it is. And I'm trying to convince myself. Now, what I'm trying to do, because I'm a married man, I'm trying to convince myself that I could get up enough nerve to convince my wife, okay? Because she's the money manager, and she's the only reason I have anything left. She's amazing, okay? And she's cheap, and she loves it, and I love it too. Not all the time, but I do, okay? And I'm trying to convince her. I said, this would be a good preaching shirt. That's my... I'm not stupid, all right? She's not here. She's at Pastor's Wives Retreat. She'll never hear this message. Because when I preached it to her in advance, I didn't put that part in. I'm trying to convince myself that I need this. But if you were to come to my closet, which, by the way, is a walk-in closet. I have a room for my clothes. Isn't that cool? I have a room for my clothes. Now, anybody that's ever been anywhere around the world to people that don't have much, if you've ever been to Rwanda, Uganda, Tanzania, all those places, my closet is as big as their house. And I have a house for my clothes. Do I need more clothes? No. But I saw it and I wanted it. And I convinced myself and I bought it. No, I like it, that's fine. But it will decay. It will fall apart. I will get bored with it and will buy another one when I don't need another one, right? That's my heart. I'm not saying I'm better at any of this than anyone in the room or anyone watching online. I'm the same. I'm so quickly bought into, I have something, it's going to benefit me. And Jesus says, that's a bad way of thinking. Now, there's a good part of that, and he draws that out in the story, but I have a better way to have a bottom line, all right? Here's the bottom line. What if you take all of your time, or some of your time, or a little more time than you're taking now, we'll just call it that, and all of your money, or some of your money, or just a little more money than you're spending right now, and you invest it in something that will outlast you, that will go beyond you, that you will never, ever, ever see the end of, but you know it's doing something for others. What if you were to be really smart, really shrewd, and be honest? Not shrewd and dishonest, but smart, shrewd, and honest. And take the little bit of time that's been afforded to you and the little bit of money that's been put in your hands, that they all belong to God, and use them for something eternal. That's where Jesus is going here. Because everything you have is a tool. Your time and money, they're just tools to invest. And the question is, how are we using our little bit of time and our little bit of money for something that will last beyond us? And not just in this world, beyond us, like to other people, to other communities, that's great. But beyond us after we're dead and after we're gone. And so maybe today, and I don't actually have a lot of application on this sermon, to be honest. I preached to my wife last week and I said, I have no application. She goes, I don't think it needs one, because God needs to do that with every individual person. But here's my question. What if you were to go home today and look at everything you have and survey your kingdom as it is, large or small, we all have it, and were to reevaluate everything in light of eternity? That's the bottom line of the parable. And in reevaluating everything for eternity, figuring out how to invest in eternity. Now, Jesus goes on in verses 10 to 11. It not only is everything we have a tool, it's more than just a tool to use for the kingdom's sake and future. He goes on and says, this one who is faithful in a very little is also faithful in much, and one who is dishonest in a very little is also dishonest in much. If then you who have not been faithful in the unrighteous wealth or stuff, who will entrust to you the true riches? And you're like, wait a minute. Jesus is saying you've been given management of a little. I don't care how big it is. I was driving, I had to pick my car up and drop off the loaner car, and there was a Lamborghini next to me. Seriously, in Beaverton, we were sitting at a stoplight, and I looked over at him, and he didn't even need to look over at me because I had a Forester. And I listened to his car, and I thought, oh, do you hear those valves? Do you hear that exhaust? That's just, I can't wait till he takes off. I'm just going to sit here and enjoy it. It's a Lamborghini, for crying out loud. That's unbelievable. Hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. The price of a house, unbelievable. But I don't care if you have a Lamborghini or if you have I'm not going to embarrass any automaker. Yugo, how about that? I can embarrass a Yugo if you're old enough. Nobody gets offended by a Yugo. Unless you bought one, then you're deeply offended. Okay. He says, one who is faithful in a very little is also faithful in much. Jesus says, I've given you stuff a little here. If you haven't been honest with it and faithful with it, why would you even remotely think that when you get there in eternity, I'm going to give you big stuff? I wish I knew what the big stuff was. The Bible doesn't describe the big stuff. But Jesus says it's big stuff. It's awesome stuff. And I would like to believe him because he's my Savior. Okay. He goes on to say this in verse 12. And if you have not been faithful, okay, that's a big word right there. Faithful in that which is another's. Jesus just said that there are times we've been unfaithful with our time, and we could all admit that. And there are times we've been unfaithful with our money. We have to admit that. Because if you've not been faithful in the stuff that's not even yours, Why would I give you something significant in eternity? And he says, one day we're going to stand there and give an account. And in essence, and I'm not Jesus, but this is what I read as the accumulation of the text. I'm giving you something, and I'm trusting you with something. And I'm trusting you with something so you can invest it for my name's sake and for eternity. And the only thing going into eternity with you are people. So man, it would be awesome if you did it in such a way that they're a whole lot more. Because some of you have buried your stuff. You've used it for yourself. Some of you have invested a little and you're going to get an amount, and that's great. And some of you invested a lot, you're going to get a lot of money. Don't worry about it, but just don't bury it. Just don't hide it. Just don't hold it for yourself. Because not only is everything we have a tool, it's a test. And if you're a follower of Jesus, man, I got to tell you, and if you're not a follower, you're off the hook on this one. Well, not really. But if you're a follower of Jesus, you're going to stand before him one day and give an account. And the Bible says that we will all stand before the judgment seat of Christ, the bema seat of Christ, we who are followers. If you're not a follower, there is another judgment seat. You really need to know about it. That's not the point of this message. But the end of the book says that you will all stand before the throne of God and give an account, and it will be too late, but you will bow, and every knee will bow, and every tongue will confess that Jesus is Lord, and it'll be too late for you. And that's the only part of the sermon's for you right now, okay? But for the rest of us, one day, in just a flash, everything we've ever done with all of our life will be revealed for what it really, truly was. And a fire, Paul says, will sweep through it, and the wood and the hay and the stubble, the worthless stuff, it's going to burn up in an instant. But the only thing that's going to last is gold and silver and precious stones, and I don't know what all that means. But I do know this, that at the end of your life, you will look back, and the only question that will matter is, what did you do with the manager's assets? And if you did something good in that, then he's going to give you more. And if you wasted it and squandered it, you're not going to get much because you've been unfaithful. All right. He closes, verse 13. No servant can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and money. Not only is everything we have a tool and everything we have, it's a test, but I'm going to say it's a trademark stamp of who you really belong to. It's evidenced by your life because you can only serve God or money. You can't serve both. To which I'm like, dude, those are not mutually exclusive, Jesus. Can I tell you how you can do both? He's like, no, you can't tell me how you can do both because I know your heart. And I know we try to juggle both. But you're either a slave to God or a slave to stuff. And you have to decide which one. You have to decide to whom you really belong. Do you belong to this world? Because, I'm not going to name billionaires, but you know their names. They're weird, but they got a lot of stuff. And a Lamborghini, they could buy 1 million Lamborghinis with one purchase and one click. It's nothing. Man, that's great. It's fine. It's nice. Beautiful car. I'd rather have a Ferrari, but that's another story, okay? They wouldn't even allow me to own one. I don't even qualify for owning a Ferrari, even if I had the money. Why would I even care? It's transportation, right? It's a car. I want to get good mileage. I want to be safe. Yeah, it'd be nice. But who am I really living for? My shirt, I like it. It's fine. Red, white, and blue. I'm an American. Okay, all right. It's a good 4th of July purchase. Okay, great. But it's just a shirt, right? It's going to wear out. It's going to snag. It's going to get, my car's going to get, why is it that you get a car and then it gets a dent? When I bought this shirt, it snagged immediately. I walked by something and snagged. I'm like, gosh, what am I doing? It's going to fall apart. It's going to fall apart. And one day you're going to throw it away. But what are you going to have for all eternity? Only the people you take with you. And you have to make a decision today. You have to make this decision. To whom do you really belong? God or this world? Because this world and all of its stuff is passing away, Jesus says. But God and the people you take with you are the only thing that are going to matter. Now, one last time, just got a couple minutes. Grab your watch or your timepiece and your money or whatever represents money. And now think about this. This is the application for you. I don't know how much time you have left. I have no idea. You don't know either. And you might be able to look at your bank account or your 401k or your pension and be able to put your trust in that, and then the economy crashes, okay, as we've seen over the years, and you can't anymore. But forget that. This doesn't belong to you, and this doesn't belong to you. It belongs to God. And He will sit down with you and evaluate how you used His stuff. And the only evidence of it going on is that you put Him first. Because we don't really own anything. It's all the Master's. I received a very strange email, maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago. And the email had 2 documents attached to it. One was a last will and testament, and one was a codicil with an adjustment. And the last will and testament was written in 1981. And the codicil was updated in 1994. And it designated that I was the executor of the account. Now, I've never wanted to be the executor of somebody's estate. I hear that's like a whole year of your life gone. And everybody will hate you when it's done, you know? But it didn't have my name on it. It had my position at CV Northwest and said, you're in charge of it, and here's what I want to have done with it. I'm like, oh man, that's serious, right? Because now I've been put in a position that none of it's mine, and I'm responsible for sending it in a way that I'm accountable for legally. I could be sued if I don't handle it the way the will states. I sat with a lawyer, sat with a couple of attorneys, started a probate court process. I've never done it before. Don't ever want to do it again. And my kids will do it, and God bless them. But I realized I have to guard these assets with fierce intensity because they're not mine. And so I ended up taking a couple people with me and went to the place. It's actually in another state, and I drove there, spent the morning, and I carted back 4 boxes of legal documents. Nice house, nice possessions. His local church, they're selling all that, taking care of it, under my orders now, under my umbrella of authority. And I got the keys, got the checkbook, got the cell phones, I got the birth and the death certificates. I got everything. His wife passed 2 weeks before. It's pretty clean, pretty simple. But as I sort through these boxes at my house, there's only one box that really matters. Now here's this. Somewhere back in 1981, God said, James, I want you to manage it. I know I didn't know that. I was in high school, for crying out loud. But He entrusted me with somebody else's earthly stuff. And I don't know, it might take 6 months. It might be easy, it might be hard. I might get sued, I don't know. I have no idea. But in the end, I'll write a bunch of checks and close the account and walk away and know that I managed somebody else's assets with fierce intensity because I was accountable, legally accountable to distributing them the way the will had established. And if I dare vary from that or even take $1, I'm guilty of fraud and theft, and I can't do that. And everything in this guy and this gal's life that really mattered in the end was a banker's box of legal documents and a few things of stuff. And friends, one day, I don't know when, I hope it's a long time, but one day that's going to happen to you, and all of the stuff, all the important documents could probably be reduced down to one box. And someone who will be responsible for distributing it will manage that one simple box according to your will. And your Father has a will and a desire for all of the time and all the money He's given you. And I'm just going to close with a question. How are you doing with it? And what are you doing with it? Let's pray. Father, the only application of this message is just to recognize that we are not owners, we're managers. We own nothing. We manage everything. And man, people of the world have figured this out. They leverage everything they've got for the accumulation of more stuff. And you have invited us to manage everything for the accumulation of more stuff. but eternal stuff, people stuff. People will welcome us into eternity because we opened up our heart to them. We opened our checkbook to them. We opened our schedule to them. We invited them into our lives and we shared the message of Jesus. The question is, are there going to be any people in heaven because of the way we managed and stewarded your possessions, God? May that be true. May there be a party in welcoming us. And may we never get glory on the earth for what we're doing. But may you get it for all eternity. We pray in your name. Amen.
As we continue this morning, church, we want to invite you in an opportunity to respond. And there's a few different ways that we do that around here. First is I want to invite you, if you're a follower of Jesus, to spend some time at the table. And maybe this morning God is stirring something in your heart and you need to spend some time there remembering that he gave it all up for you to take on our sins and to pay that penalty so that we could be here today and celebrate. And we're going to give an offering this morning because that's part of our worship, is recognizing that it's all God's and it's not ours. And we're going to have our prayer team available because you might find yourself in a moment where you just want to spend some time in prayer with someone, and they would love to do that. They're going to be right up here in the front row. So anytime during the next few songs, if that's you, please come up and take a moment for that. But let's respond this morning, church.
These pieces broken and scattered, in mercy gathered, mended and whole, empty-handed but not forsaken. I've been set free, I've been set free. Amazing grace, sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I am found. Was blind, but now I see. Oh, I can see you now. I can see the love in your eyes, laying yourself down, raising up the broken to take our weakness, you set your treasure in jars of clay. So take this on, Lord, I'll be your vessel, the world to see your life in me. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound saved a wretch like me. Oh, see the love in your eyes, laying yourself down, raising up the broken to can see the love in your eyes, laying yourself down, raising up the broken to life. By your majesty, covered by your grace so free. Here I am, knowing I'm a sinful man, covered by the blood of the Lamb. Now I find the greatest love of all.
sacrifice. Grace has found me just as I am, empty-handed but alive in your hand.
Grace has found me just as I am, empty-handed but alive in your hand. Sing majesty, oh majesty. Forever I am changed by your love, in the beauty of your majesty, your majesty.
God, we thank you that we are changed by you. Lord, it's you and us. It's what you can do in our hearts, God, to turn them towards yourself. Lord, so that it's less about us and it's more about you. God, as we sing your name today, Lord, as we sing of your greatness and your goodness, you're so good to us even when we get it wrong, and we do it all the time. God, we just want to give you our hearts, our lives this morning. Even if it's just a little piece at the beginning, just to get started on the journey of really following you and not following the things that the world wants us to follow. I thank you that you're bigger than it all. God, we love you. We love you. Amen, church. I love how that last verse puts it, that you can't serve two masters, that our heart's only going to follow one. And it starts by giving ourselves away, giving that away to him. And that's where it begins. And as we sing this last song, if you're able, I just want to invite you to your feet. I want this to be our anthem today, this week, as you think about the things that Pastor James was talking about this morning, about what it looks like to give it back to him, because it was his in the first place.
Here's my heart, Lord. Here's my heart, Lord. Here's my heart, Lord. Speak what is true, 'cause I am found, I am yours, and I am loved, I'm made pure, and I have life, I can breathe, oh, I am healed, I am free. Here's my heart, Lord.
thank you for attending with us this morning. My name is Daniel. I'm one of the pastors here. I've been on staff for a couple months. And if I haven't met you yet, it's because I'm usually back there. They're like, is he around? Yes, I am around, usually with the kids. And they said, we think you're ready for the adults now. So here I am this morning. Thanks, Pastor James, for the message. I moved this weekend actually out to Hillsboro, and stuff isn't that great when you're moving it in boxes. It's not as awesome. But I was thinking about how when I got engaged to my wife, I had this awesome truck. And I really wanted to keep it, but I ended up getting rid of it because I love my wife. And we think about our relationship with God, when we actually meet him, all that stuff isn't as important. And so we get to reflect on that as maybe we haven't met with God as much as we think we have when our stuff is so important. But anyway, we're so glad that you're here with us, and we have just a couple of announcements to share with you. One, Family Fellowship is back. If you haven't been here before and you don't know where to go, you just go straight out these doors, all the way to the end of the hall and go to the right, and there'll be some food prepared in the back. You have a chance to hang out with your friends or maybe some new people that you don't know and get a chance to talk. There's also an announcement that went out in an email we announced last week that there are some adjustments happening, so make sure to check your email, see that video Eliza and Paul talk about what's going on. Also, we have our toy giveaway coming up. There's a link on the website, so if you go to isunrise.com, you'll find a link to how to order those toys, and they'll be delivered here. And then September 22nd, which is this Friday, we've got our night of worship going on. We're super excited. We're going to have all kinds of different worship styles and cultures, from what I understand, going on. So come on out at 7 o'clock in this room. And then with that, you're dismissed to Family Fellowship. Have a great Sunday.